Jayson Tatum had been waiting for. He led the Celtics in points, rebounds, and assists in these finals. He's the fourth player to do that on a championship team. By the way, he's the only one, as you see on the screen, who did not wind up winning the MVP award of the finals. Here was Tatum after the game talking about all the criticism.
How long do you think it'll take to hit you? This is a career-defining accomplishment.
Say that again, please.
A career-defining accomplishment.
Please say that again. These last 7 years have been a roller coaster, up and down. I had to listen to all the that people said about me, and tonight it was worth it. Oh my God.
That's really strong, and it's so interesting to hear. And here's what I will say. I'll start the conversation. And Wendy, you and I have been covering the sport long enough that we remember a time before there was social media. And before social media, this was not so uncommon. Stars would not get to the top of the mountain, and it would take them a little time to get there, and there would be some criticism, but most of it was easy to block out. In this day and age, there's so much talk about literally everything that I could say to Jayson Tatum, Jayson, you've been in the league 7 years. You've been an All-Star 5 times. You've been first-team All-NBA 3 times. You really haven't been that. You have been given your credit. People have pointed out where you've come up short in some of the biggest moments, and that's been real in the moments that they happened. But I think that what he hears is he just hears all of this noise all the time, and I am sympathetic to that.
Greeny, he voiced an ad that ran from Nike.
It
was the first ad out of the gate after the championship presentation that said, keep disbelieving in me. Obviously, he did that for a reason. You know, it wasn't a celebration. It was take that. And by the way, when you win, you can say, take that. You know, I told the story that Jerry West told me a few years ago. I told it last week. 1969, Jerry West lost Game 7 of the finals. Basically stayed in his house for 2 months. Finally decided, I got to come out of my house, went jogging, and a guy said, you're a choker, and he almost choked him out. He was so angry. And then he realized these guys in today's day and age listen to that 1 million times a day. The first guy who said something to me, and in 2 months, I almost killed, literally almost killed him. So the situation today is high demand. But here's the thing. When you win, Jayson, talk your talk.
Yes.
You can say whatever you want. Nobody can say anything to you ever again. If somebody wants to try to count your rings later, fine. But now it's over. You've got it. Enjoy yourself. This is too hard to win. I'm 20 years of covering the NBA. It's one of the things I always have learned, and I say every year, it's so hard to win that I demand that you celebrate it, and it looks like he's off to a good start.
Parenthetically, Jerry West was the MVP of those finals that his team lost. But go ahead, Jay.
Look, our society on a day-to-day basis, right, minimizes everything. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So every single day when you wake up, you're hearing people talk. They're not talking about you being first-time All-NBA 3 times. They're not applauding you in your face for how good you are. They're telling you, oh, you couldn't get over the hump. Every single day. That's the world we live in. Today, if I'm Jayson Tatum, bleep you and bleep you everything you bring to the table. I've done it now. I'm him, and I'm going to continue to be him. You have to understand, this world, that's what sells. That's what gets clicks. That's what people are conditioned to think. But that doesn't mean that you have to be conditioned to think that way about yourself. And him giving over the hump is proving that to people in real time. And I appreciate the journey.
And not to just continue this dialogue on our society, but people could say a million positive things about you. But that one negative thing that you hear or that you read, it sticks with you so much longer. It hits you so much harder. We experience it in this business. Anybody that's doing something relevant experiences what it feels like to be cut down and experiences what it feels like to be cut down when you don't feel like you should be cut down. The athletes that are competing at the highest level experience that times 10. And for Jayson Tatum, you talked about it, the regular season awards and all of those things, but the one thing that people continue to say about him was, can he close in the finals? Can he finish in the finals? Can he perform in the finals to win a championship? And now that one thing, he's been able to shut all of that down, and I know for him, that has to feel good.
Get in here, Monica.
Greedy, I feel like such an underachiever this morning because Wendy made it in and I missed the meeting, but if I had woke up for the meeting, I would have said, we need the graphic that demonstrates what age these NBA players typically hit in terms of winning championships. Because we did this a couple of years ago, right? Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're 27, 26. They just hit what could be indicated as their prime, right? The 107 stats in terms of the games that they've played of playoffs, I get it. You don't necessarily want to be in that class. But in the same breath, these gentlemen have been playing meaningful postseason basketball almost all of their career, right? And so there is something to be celebrated there. I know plenty of NBA organizations that would love to see a team in a recurring position to play deep into the postseason. But these guys, to your point, just opened up their window. And this is typically the age where we see NBA stars starting to turn the corner and taking home the Larry O.
How good was this combination? Cindy, let's put the full screen we have here, C12 up there. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are the first Celtic duo to each average 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in the finals. For these finals, Brown was slightly more efficient from the floor, shot 44% across the 5 games against the Mavericks. But I'll go back to what I said Friday when we were already crowning the Celtics one game prematurely. What they showed in these finals, once and for all, is that they aren't a Batman and a Robin. It doesn't really matter who the MVP was. It was perfectly fine that it was Jaylen Brown. Had it gone to Jayson Tatum, that would have been fine too. And yes, there'll come a time when maybe when we're assessing a player's career, we'll count up how many times they were the MVP of the finals. That'll matter then. But today it does not. Because most teams in the NBA have a clear-cut 1 and a clear-cut 2. They don't have that. They have 2 legitimate, all-league, top-level superstars.
There are 11 votes for Finals MVP. It was 7-4 in favor of Jaylen Brown. If it had been 5-5 and they'd split the award because Drew Holiday got the 11th vote, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Drew Holiday could have made a case for MVP of the Finals, and that's not to debate about that. It's to illustrate how good this Celtics team is. And not only that, it was a brilliant series from Derek White as well. And so the fact that you had a debate about who the MVP was and there was genuine mystery in the building, on the stage, they didn't know who Adam Silver was going to say, is not controversial. It's an ode to the greatness of this team.
Do you know that thing called 50-40-90?
Yeah, of course.
Have you heard about that?
Yes.
Yeah. You know Drew Holiday was 50-40-96 this postseason?
First player ever to get
96 this postseason?
And last night, I know the game really isn't that important. Last night, Tatum and Brown started 1 of 9.
Thank you.
It was their bad start was cushioned because Drew Holiday came out on a mission.
1,000%.
Yeah, 50-40-95. He's the first player in NBA history to ever do that for an entire postseason with a minimum of a certain number of games. Look, the point that we're making here, because Al Horford played an incredibly important role, and Peyton Pritchard does what he does better than anybody I've ever seen in my life, which is that one thing that he does.
Sam Hauser's knocking down shots.
Sam Hauser. Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis set the tone for the entire series. This series, you could look back on it and you can say the better team was identified in the first game of this series, and it's because Porzingis completely dominated. So my point is, they all played their role.
Yes.
They all deserve this celebration, and that's why they're not just a champion, Monica. They are the best team in the sport, as they proved something that should have been obvious all along. Go ahead, Mon.
So I agree with you, Greeny. PSA, as this conversation is going to matriculate and mold over the next couple of days, we have to hold space to celebrate a team, right? Because the next thing, as the goalpost continues to move, we all just had our commentary on how we consume sports in American society. Oh, they need to run it back. So-and-so needs to get an MVP, wah, wah, wah. Like, if we're going to celebrate this team, it can't be a conversation about what individual needs to stand above the rest. Like, this was the ultimate example of a team. And I know we're thrilled about this group, but all I can think about in the next few years is, will these guys run into Denver potentially? So, like, this is great. This was a fun to be a part of for sure.
Real quick, just on the growth, and it was the moment between the 2-star players. So when Jaylen Brown won the Eastern Conference MVP, right? Yeah. He was like, I don't win anything. You saw this thing where it was about him in that moment. And remember we had that conversation because Jayson Tatum was kind of off to the side and people were like, of course, is there something there? What's going on? The first thing Jaylen Brown said after he won the Finals MVP last night was, I share this with my brother, Jayson Tatum.
He did. We played it.
It was like such a moment where it's like, yo, we did this together.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it by myself. You couldn't do it by yourself. We couldn't do it without our teammates. And to me, that was the crystallization moment of where these two are now after they made it through the gauntlet.
There is also an ever-present reminder of the history of the franchise you play for. Because Jaylen Brown, in the last 2 weeks, won the Larry Bird Trophy as the Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the Bill Russell Trophy as the Finals MVP. And those, of course, are 2 of the Celtics who are on the Mount Rushmore of Celtic history. And these 2 guys are now staking their claim and will try and move their way up. And, of course, the rivalry between the Celtics and Lakers, we put Magic's tweet up there. Magic Johnson tweeting